Hey, John Thibault here. Welcome back. I wanted to talk about the different ways that people use or try to get access to get something done. And what I just showed you was how you make all these choices. And when you look at it, it's really pretty chaotic because you're not looking at it in a coherent way. So what I want to do is I want to take the chaos of our choices and put them into some kind of order. So what I did was I assembled all the choices that I had on the board a few minutes ago and then put them into their order in terms of how you might approach getting something done. And I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute as well. In Policy Hacking Secrets, which is part of this iLobby framework for policy and making political change and understanding what to get done, I want to describe the problem first of all. And the big problem that we have, it really comes down to three things. The three wicked problems we're trying to solve here are apathy, access, and affordability. And those are the three constraints that really hold people back. Apathy is, hey, I can't do anything, I don't care, I don't know what to do, it doesn't affect me. All of that falls into that category. And when I showed you in the other video, the tall kind of silo of who is in that and who is doing anything, it's really the top, 1, 2, 5, maybe 10% of the people who are looking at that and saying, you know what, I'm not apathetic because it matters and I care. And so they've gotten beyond that point of getting over the apathy. But really for most of us and the rest of the world, they're like, hey, whatever they decide, it's fine with me. And that's one way to live your life. But I think after a while, you realize that you need to engage. So we want to address the issue of apathy. And I'm not saying it's an easy problem. It's a wicked problem. It's a difficult thing to deal with. If you look up the definition of wicked problem, you will see what I'm referring to. It's an actual term related to complex problems that have lots of moving parts. And that's exactly what policy is all about, and which is why I personally find it exciting. I think it's a really big challenge. The next part is access. When you look at many of the ways that people say, okay, I'm going to talk to my legislator, I'm going to write him a letter, I'm going to go to Washington, I'm going to put money into their capital or into their election campaign, all of these things, they're looking for a way to have access, to get to know the person so the person knows who they are, and then say, you know what, hey, I want to meet with you, I want to talk to you, etc. And many of the books and the videos that show you how to lobby and how to persuade your legislator and how to get stuff done, it's really about the etiquette of access, speaking to them politely, setting up a meeting, being there on time, having your talking points down. If you Google the term how to lobby, you'll find a bunch of videos that will talk about how you actually do it. And everybody's got a different point of view, but it's very tactical. And it really, for the most part, comes down to this issue of access. How do you approach the legislator? What do you say? What do you talk about? How do you convince them? How do you follow up? Etc., etc. So what is the frequency of the communication? What is the method of the communication? How many people should be in the room? What you should wear? Should you be on time? Should you meet in the district? Should you meet in the state capitol or in Washington? That's what many of them cover. What I want to do is take the bigger problem of saying, okay, let's get off the apathy cycle first, move into access, figure out how to do that piece as well, but have a strategic plan. And the bottom line that people run into is the issue of affordability. If you're doing this alone and you're saying, hey, I want to, talk to my legislator, I want to make this law change, or I want to stop something from happening, which is, more than 50% of the cases anyway, where you're just sort of stopping them from doing something. You want to get that done. You end up finding that, you can't afford to spend the time. You can't afford to spend the energy, the effort, the time, the money. And that's why 95% of the people don't do this. It's too expensive. So I talked about this. Who does this? Well, the people who have money. So who has money? Well, the very wealthy, high net worth individuals, corporations, trade associations, unions, etc. They have the resources, the capital, the money to do it. So the third problem is really one of affordability. How can you afford to get anything done? And you need to crack those three things. You need to crack the issue of apathy. You can't be apathetic. You can't not care because it's your life, your world, it is. Once you crack that, you're trying to figure out, well, how do I get through that little narrow door? There's 700,000 people in my district. I got to get through that little door. Who's going to listen to me? I'm nobody. That stops you. The internal doubt will stop you, and the fact that you're competing with so many other interests who have way more experience at this and have been doing it for much longer and are very clear about how to get stuff done. And you're coming in as an amateur. So when you need to get something done, you need to figure out a better way to get the access and know what that is. And again, people don't like to use that word, so don't say access. I mean, I learned that when I was working in government affairs. I said, oh, well, all we're doing is we're paying for access. And they said, ooh, don't say that, don't use that word. You know why? When they tell you not to use a word, that's exactly the truth. So what we were doing was we had access to top politicians, like all the time. It was very, very easy. And they listened. And they listened because in that industry, we were important. And finally, affordability. So I'm repeating that, but I just want to stress it that the only way you can afford to do this is either you already fall into the category where you've got the money to be able to make it happen, or you are in a category where you are able to crowdfund this. And that's what we're talking here about at iLobby. I hear my dogs barking. Okay, see, they stop. Isn't that good? They're good. So what I wanted to do was take the chaos that I had in this scramble and show you that in terms of access, here's all your choices of how to do something. And you can do this by saying, okay, I'm gonna sign a petition, or I'm gonna fill in a poll or a survey, I'm gonna write a letter to my congressman, or I'm gonna tell them what to do, or write an editorial, and that'll get the word out. It will, but it's you, one person, okay? Then you come up the ladder here in terms of the modalities of what you can do and say, well, look, I'll do a phone call, I'll call them up, Or, you know what, I'm gonna get on talk radio and I'm really gonna vent. Millions of people will hear me, but guess what? Yes, the legislator might be listening to that station, or their staff might be, but they don't know who you are. You're completely anonymous. So that may or may not have some impact. And you say, well, look, I can get an interview, I can get on TV, I could do it with Skype. These are some other choices, and I'm not saying that they're the right ones or the wrong ones. You may end up with a combination of some of these, but you need to have a strategic plan to be able to move forward with a policy idea where you want to be able to work with either your group or yourself or your neighborhood or your community, whatever you think. And then finally over here we have the last two things, which so many frustrated people are doing. They're just going straight to, I'm going to protest in the streets and I am going to create such havoc that they'll have to pay attention to me. Well, that's great, but you're not clear in your message. Here, I'm going to demonstrate and walk down the street and they'll see that there's 1 million of us on the Washington Mall, and then they'll listen. Well, yeah, maybe they will, and maybe it worked in the past. But is it still going to work today? And how do you get all those 1 million people to fly into one city at one time, coordinate hotels, coordinate buses, cars, parking, permits, etc.? It's a huge logistics nightmare. And it's kind of the old way of doing things. And I talk about the old way and the new way. Much of this is the old way of doing things. And there's a better way to do it, There's unconventional ways, and you need to try something different if it has not worked for you in the past. You could say, look, my representative is having a town hall this summer. We're going to go to the town hall. We're going to get 2 minutes to speak. We're going to be limited, but we're going to get up there and we're going to say our piece, and that'll be it. Well, it's helpful. It's one data point among many that the lawmaker will look at. And the same here. Or you can say, look, I'm going to just take it a little further, get a personal meeting. And again, I talked about that a moment ago, how you get a personal meeting, you have 15 minutes, and then you must be totally succinct and clear and know what you're saying, what the ask is, what you want to get done, and make sure that you can have that impact. And you can't leave it there. You got to follow up. You got to follow up again and again and again, and you have to have more people help you. And ultimately, you can say, you know what, I don't have the time to do this. I mean, who does, right? So I'm going to hire a government affairs professional, somebody in public affairs, somebody who does this every day, somebody who has proximity to my lawmaker in my state capital or in Washington, and I'm going to hire a lobbyist. Well, guess who's doing this? And I talked about this. The people who are doing it are large corporations, startups that run into regulatory issues, big trade groups, big unions, big money, etc. And you heard the term money. The reason they can do it is they solve that third problem I talked about, which is affordability. They can pay to get the word out. It is like a campaign, and that's really what you need to be aware of. And for 80% of the people, they're sitting over here. Do nothing. Complain to your neighbor, remain silent, disengage, do nothing. So if this doesn't matter to you, if your business doesn't matter to you or your community, then by all means, stay over here, let somebody else decide. But if you have grown up and you're no longer a child and you're saying, you know what, there really is a way to interact with the lawmakers and we have to find a way to do this in an intelligent manner, then you want to continue and not be in that world of chaos that I showed you a few minutes ago. And you want to be in a very orderly world where you are strategically working through the problems that you want to focus on and you want to get something done at the legislative level. And that's it. There you have it.